My name is Eldon Garnet. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I work in numbers of medium. The one I'm really well known for the current moment is public art. It's a pursuit of both passion and of getting it out into the social environment, which interests me about public art. And I change mediums as I feel the inspiration diminishes in one mode of expression. I move over to another, or they just overlap in some ways, and the ideas get expressed as best they can in different mediums. I write books, and I do public art, and I do photography, and do a little bit of video, play around also in other kinds of mediums. But I don't think that has been, in my situation particularly, advantageous as a career move. People don't know what to make of me. They don't know whether I'm a writer, whether I'm a photographer, whether I'm a public artist. And I think it's taken me longer to make an established presence because I get dismissed as not that. You're just a dabbler in that. And for that reason, the Canadian literature is never accepted. My publisher is Semiotext in New York, right? Or another in California now. And that's where I've been published more so than I have in Canada. So I have a certain kind of recognition, but it's dissipated. But what I really am is all those things I mentioned before, which are dismissed within the official channels of, say, the government agencies or whatever granting mechanisms, and also in the confusion of the audience too. So the function of the artist is to make social change, to make interjection, to be critical, to examine. And I would have to say, it's not popular now. What I find in monuments and public art in general, the social function has been taken out. What they want from the artist is not to say anything about the social fabric, the critique of our culture, to introduce the kind of thinking into the public domain. What's asked at the present moment, and I think I'm pretty correct here, is they want two types of public art. They want either a decorative kind of marker for a building or a memorial. The other one they want, and this is the one that you can see if you go to Ottawa, you got these kind of tableau wax presentations. They're like gift shop purchases of figures that are placed outside of the gift shop of the institution and used as tableaus. There's nothing imaginative, and I'm not going to hesitate to use the word poetic. There's nothing in those. I come from the notion of the avant-garde. I really want to make some kind of intervention into the social fabric. I want to be able to say something to my audience. I want to move them both in a physical, emotional way. There's an aspect that no art school can teach you, and it's basically going the emotional distance. And it's a perseverance contest, especially in a city like Toronto, which has an inferiority complex to the point where no one's recognized with any kind of elevation. I mean, even a great artist like Michael Snow, which everybody loves, still, you watch Michael walk around, and he's not a star of any stretch of the imagination. But Toronto is a very difficult city as an artist, because I've showed my work internationally, and you come back to Toronto and you feel great. You feel that you're getting some recognition and some honor for your work. Come back to Toronto, within a couple of weeks you're beaten down. I struggle for everything I have. In this kind of being an artist, you have to go the emotional distance, and you have to be able to persevere too. And you have to work hard. You can be great in art school. They recognize you. This is what art schools are good for. They give you a position to do some art. You leave school. You don't show for a week. You don't show for a month. You don't show for a year. You don't show for 5 years. Are you still an artist? Can you still produce, right? But if you showed right away and someone was phoning you to do some new work for a show, you're going to produce more work. If no one's phoning you for a number of years, you're going to have to really believe in yourself and persevere and find ways of expressing yourself. Even in 1 week, I can go from up here to way down, or maybe it's better way down to way up here, right? And that's even happened this week. I get rejected for something this week, and then all of a sudden I sold some work and finished a public commission, so I feel okay. But if you didn't have a hit, you can go years without a hit. You have to really have that kind of self-perseverance and believing in yourself, because you have to believe in yourself. Who's going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself? That's a projection of self too. So those kind of things give a persona, and that's what I think Toronto does too, or what you have to do as an artist, is project a positive notion. How did Warhol do it? He projected a positive notion. Is the A-list artist, like they're, from Warhol down, that is really dictating the prices of these kind of commodity pieces. The market almost does not exist, except in a kind of a smaller way, for these second and third tier artists that aren't on the A list of the capitalist system, which have been picked up and used as a mode of moving money around. There's not a huge amount of money that moves, especially in a country like Canada, for works of art. If someone sells a painting of a probably most likely deceased artist in Canada, they would get, if they got an expensive one, would be $100,000. When there's calls for you to submit your work for $20, to me, it's instantaneously problematic that there's someone here making money not from the sale of your work, but from the artists that submit. And I would recommend the same group of people who are submitting their work for these competitions, they get together and rent their own space and just show your work and form a collective. Even if it's a collective that has to rent a space once a year, twice a year. In public art, it's quite the converse. It's all the public art consultant, and they'll run a competition. They'll ask you to submit your previous work as your credentials. Then if they like your previous work, and you write a little brief that describes how you fit into this competition, they select you as a finalist. As a finalist, they'll give you a token amount of money. They'll ask you to submit images of your work and site, and they'll ask you to make a model, and then you'll submit, and then you'll be adjudicated by a public art jury. The public art jury is not intelligent anymore. I think there's been a lack of intelligence incorporated into them. And what I mean by that is not that jury members are all probably very intelligent people, but somehow they don't understand the notion of the public. They're not so they want work that the public will not find objectionable. In other words, they're not willing to take a risk. The committee doesn't want anything that's going to make the audience think too deeply. They want to just have something which is a token, a marker, a plaque. That you're creating work for an audience and making them think and feel and culturally involved. I mean, how many memorials are there that we have any emotional impact with? Very, very few in the entire world. So there is the theory that these monuments are useless because there's no cultural involvement with them, there's no social continuation with them. Once they're erected, they become, like nothing more than a tree in the landscape of the city. I am a visual artist, I am an artist, but I have to say that I am a little bit bored of art at this particular time. And I think that's a problem. I'm not an audience anyway. Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe the age is maybe not as curious about other people's art, or I don't get moved by it as much. Like I have a commercial gallery in Toronto, Christopher Cutts, and I am so bored with what he puts on the wall, right? He goes to the Toronto Art Fair and he takes only painting. He's got to sell enough to break even, so what's he going to sell? Not some kind of radical avant-garde sculpture. I guess if he had it, he would. But more painting, because painting still is what sells. That is what still dominates the market. It's almost as though it's the architectural model. It's almost the manufacturing. I mean, this all begins with Warhol and his pseudo factory. I mean, I have no trouble with manufacturing art if you can do it. But Jeff Koons is particularly funny. And because it's such a business, well, my question is, why do you need to do that? Why do you need to produce so much art and money? The creative process is partly there, but maybe the art is just like Warhol said, the best art is business. You want to become famous. Well, we all want the recognition. But when you get so much recognition, why do you need to make so much money doing it? Do one instead of 100,000. It's more valuable, number one. Last exhibition, which was large photographic prints, at one point I thought, God, these look really good on the screen. I'm going to make them LED. I'm going to make some video, not like stills, but electronic. Each one is LED, not a light box, something different, right? I thought, no, as soon as people go to bed at night, they turn it off, right? It stops to exist. So I did prints, and the prints were actually beautiful, and they have an luminosity and show your light and all that aspect about them. But the print itself is pseudo-ephemeral too. Even though they're beautiful, I don't display them. They're in the dark. They'll last 50 years if you don't display them. As soon as you put them up on the wall, you're going to have a problem with fading. I mean, when Jeff Wall does a print now, he used to give a disc, and you can reprint it when the transparency faded, because with a constant light on a transparency, there's only one way it's going. It's disappearing. That's one of the great beauties of art too, is that you get to be able to see the object and it's repeated. A performance does what I was trying to say before. It moves you. It has a passion. It has something that gets inside you. And that's what most art doesn't do. And there's something about the ephemeral aspect that makes you maybe get more involved. When I see a performance, I'm probably giving it more focal attention at that time. And so I concentrate and I get the emotion. And because we're so jaded, that's what we're talking about too, that we don't really almost see the visual arts on the wall, and that's why it needs that extended period of time to be experienced in the same way the performance is. Because we're not concentrating. We complain about our culture being superficial. We're part of our culture. Right? What can we say?